Hey guys, Chad and Bailey in here. We are the Reptile Rangers. Now again, of course, we're at the Kernersville Reptile Zoo and Medical Center again today, and we are going to talk about why UV lights, or UV in general, is important. Now, before we do that, you see this right here? That right there where I'm pointing, that's the subscribe button. Make sure you go hit that button, and we appreciate you doing so. If you've already subscribed, we appreciate you your subscription, and we appreciate you following along week after week, video after video. Now, let's talk about this. We're going to talk about UV and why it's important, okay? Now, to start, all reptiles' bodies produce vitamin D2 or VD2, okay? What they do not produce is vitamin D3. They cannot convert it naturally. So what we have is, in the place of being able to them not producing the vitamin D3 naturally, we have to have UV exposure, whether from sunlight or whether from man-made manufactured ultraviolet bulbs like these right here. Now, we are missing one. I'll talk about the one that we're missing. I thought I had one here at the zoo, and I don't. But we'll talk about them in a minute. Now, here's the thing. When we start talking about UV and why it's important, the main reason for me pointing out the fact of reptiles only produce VD2, they cannot convert it to VD3, is vitamin D3, as we all know, is important for bone growth, bone density, and formation, making sure that the bones are growing straight, hard, and true, that they're not really deformed like metabolic bone disease or MBD, which we treat a lot in a lot of animals, especially leopard geckos and bearded dragons, because they're improperly fed and improperly housed. And metabolic bone disease can hit them very, very quickly, okay? Now, when we start talking about the VD2 to VD3 conversion, the whole point of UV exposure or ultraviolet light is to give their bodies the natural vitamin D2 to vitamin D3 conversion inside of their body. So when they're sitting underneath the ultraviolet light, the vitamin D2 or the VD2 that they're naturally producing is being transferred into VD3 so that their bones grow straight, they grow hard, and they grow like they're supposed to. They're formed correctly. Then you don't see all these wavy tails, and I'll put up a couple of pictures of that, but you don't see kind of the crinked up tails, or you can also go back to our episode in metabolic bone disease and kind of how to deal with it, and you'll see a lot of pictures of MBD there. But with deformed and very bent and bowed, very limber and rubbery style limbs, underbites, overbites, soft jaw, you're talking spinal cords all out of whack, and tails are really, really deformed or rigidy, bent, twisted. That is a lack of calcium and a lack of UV exposure, okay? Now, of course we know natural sunlight is best, so UV from the sun is absolutely the best that they could get. But I also want you to understand something. UV kills things faster, okay? Ultraviolet light is a killer to skin. It is a killer to scales, skin, and everything else. It's what causes skin cancer. What causes our skin to die much faster. UV can kill us much faster. That's why you see a lot of folks in the desert, they're always wearing a lot of clothes, and that's to protect them from the UV exposure, okay? So UV is bad. UV can be bad, but there is kind of a double-edged sword when it comes to UV in the fact that reptiles do have to have the UV exposure in order to convert VD2 to VD3, okay? Now, when we start talking about the man-made bulbs like what Bailey's holding, which is what we call a curlicue, or a UV bulb like this one, or a tubed bulb like a shop light, okay? All of these are okay, okay? The shop lights tend to work the best outside of the one that I don't have here at the moment that I said I was missing, which is the mercury vapor bulb. Hands down, that is the best. Mercury vapor bulbs are much, much better than these store-bought junk, okay? Here's the thing. And here's what you need to understand. These UV bulbs are only effective 12 inches or less from the bulb. So within 6 inches, it's getting pretty well the full dose. Once you get to 12 inches, this desert bulb is barely subtropical at best, okay? So you have to make sure that your animal is getting close enough to those. These do a little bit better job, not a whole heck of a lot, but they do a little bit better job than the two that this one and the one that Bailey's holding right there. These things, I mean, they work, but they're just a big waste of money. You'd be better off with a tube bulb, or you would be better off with a mercury vapor bulb, especially. And here's the great thing. With these UVB bulbs, They only last about 6 months at a time. It's recommended to change them about every 6 months. With the mercury vapor bulbs, you can go anywhere from about 12 to 14 months. Okay, with natural sunlight, of course, you never have to, you never have to change the sun. So if you give your animal a lot of good sun exposure, if you have the ability to, without cooking it, without killing it, so on and so forth, if you can get it quite a bit of sunlight exposure, especially during the spring, summer, early fall, or if you're in the southern hemisphere where you can give it sunlight exposure all year round, you don't need these. You have no need for these anymore. But the whole point of what we're talking about here is why UV is so important. And the whole point that UV is so important is because these animals, especially the ones that eat almost strictly herbivorous or insectivorous, they don't have anything that has a skeletal system or a bone structure, so they're not getting the calcium through the food a lot of the times. And so they have to have that vitamin D3 and that calcium given from ultraviolet light exposure, okay? Now, remember, this is just a overview of why UV itself is important. Now, I'm not always a proponent of ultraviolet light bulbs, man-made bulbs. But with that being said, I do still teach the importance of UV because it is very much important and it is very much necessary, okay? So, but you just have to kind of make your own decision as to how you want to give the UV exposure. Just understand, these only last for so long, the effects only last for so long, they're only effective a certain distance away from them, but it is 100% necessary and it is very important for reptiles to have UV exposure so that they grow the way that they're supposed to and MBD or metabolic bone disease does not happen, okay? Now, we appreciate you following along. Again, this is Chad and this is Balian. We are the Reptile Rangers here at the Kernersville Reptile Zoo and Medical Center. We appreciate you following along. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell for notification. We'll either see you on the next episode or we'll see you here at the zoo. Later.